Hey, y'all. Welcome to the FlashQuotes podcast, the best pod for mobile event businesses of all shapes and sizes. Thanks for being here today. I'm joined by my friends and FlashQuotes co-founders, Zach Capshaw and Justin Goodhart, also of GoodArt Coffee. Hey, guys.
Hey.
It's a beautiful day to be alive. Ready
is.
to answer some questions?
Heck yeah.
Let's do it.
Amazing. Well, we are today going to go through some questions that we've gotten from you all in the community. Thanks so much for providing your questions online, and we're happy to hit them. If we don't get to them, we're going to push them to the next one. And if you have any questions that come up as you're listening, just make sure you hit us up. We would love, before we jump in, just love to ask for any feedback, review, follow, anywhere you find us online. I looked recently, Apple Podcast is 7 reviews, Spotify is 12. So for those of you who are the Apple fans, you got to show up. You got to hit that review. Only good reviews though. Send the bad ones directly to me and I'll talk to you. Anyways, let's rock and roll. First up, we have our friend Cynthia from Always Kind Coffee Cart. She is asking about scaling to other cities. How do you scale to other cities? And Justin, you're one of the few people in the whole coffee catering world who has done this to the magnitude you have with such success. Love to hear a little bit about scaling to other cities for you. And I think the question behind the question there, as we were discussing it, is how the heck do you do this? You're on demos with people talking about FlashQuotes all the time, talking about your business and what you've done. And they'll see through conversation or you showing, your FlashQuotes like, wow, there's so many cities here. Like, how do you even do that? Tell us the magic behind managing such a big operation.
Yeah, I mean, now it's pretty easy. We've got it down. We're in 6 cities, and on my most recent warehouse launch, I flew in for one night. My team, it was a big milestone for us. My team of I think 5 or 6 people got the entire thing kind of set up ready. I flew in for one night, just rubber stamped it, and then it was like a functional warehouse. We had all the equipment and everything we needed. But that was not true of the first one. And I definitely was absolutely terrified when I was getting ready to go from Denver to San Francisco. That was our second city that we launched. Denver's where we started. I chose San Francisco because I had some business connections out there. We'd actually travel out there a couple times every year for many years to do these kind of like private investor sort of meetings. And so I had some like catering connections, some professional connections. And so that gave me some comfort. But really, I think you're ready to launch a second city or to scale to another city when you basically never have to go into your headquarters at your current city. That's when you're ready. Doesn't mean you don't, because I like going into my warehouse. I call myself a bit of a warehouse troll. I love to be in there. I love to be building carts, tinkering, modifying things, 3D printing, but I don't have to. It's not necessary to like the day-to-day operations. So, how do you get to a point where you never have to go into your current, physically be present in your current, headquarters? And the answer for me, different coffee caterers evolve organically different structures. But for me, there's 3 roles that are critical to making that happen. Every city needs to have an event planner, salesperson, an operations manager, and a warehouse manager. That's what we call those roles. I mean, the titles may vary slightly, but what that means is somebody needs to make it rain in the bookings and sales. Somebody needs to make sure that we have enough staff and that, we have enough baristas and that like our equipment is functioning and that all of just like the timelines and nitty gritty logistics and like product ordering is completed. That's the that's the operations manager. And then the warehouse manager is the only role at GoodArt of kind of our, admin team that is required to be boots on the ground. All our event planners are remote. All of our operations managers are remote. Most don't live in the same city that they work in, but warehouse manager has to be boots on the ground. Warehouse manager role evolves organically out of our top best baristas who's had a really like a high performance track record, high reliability, and is showing some like mechanical interest and aptitude because the warehouse manager has to do, is the one taking inventory that the operations manager will then place the orders for. They're the ones repairing the carts, repairing the equipment if anything goes wrong. They're the ones kind of getting all the custom branding ready, just making sure the warehouse is kind of cleaned and organized and all of that. And then nested underneath that is your baristas being fully autonomous. Like every single barista at Goodhart who's like fully trained, they're capable of going and getting a cart, transporting it to an event, setting it up, completing service, cleaning, restocking, and flipping it and getting it ready for the next event. Every single barista. And that was not always the case. In fact, for years it wasn't the case, but I realized that that is what needed to happen. So that's kind of the structure that we do. You're ready to scale to another city when you never or almost never have to go in. Maybe for those outlier things, I was flying to San Francisco once a month early on but it wasn't often, right? It was once a month for 6 months, and then once a quarter for a few quarters, and then once a year. And now I never need to go out there unless I just want to. So yeah, that's kind of the quick and dirty version of kind of how we structure things and what that looks like.
Yeah. I would add, so a quick litmus test if your business is ready to scale to another city, you basically need to understand if your business can run without you being there. And so the baby step is go on a vacation, go to Europe, make sure that your business can run, that you can leave for 2 weeks and it comes back functioning and operating better than it, as good or better than it would without you. That's when your business is ready to, when you have the right delegation and the right people in place to run without you being there. And then you can kind of look at your next spot. If you leave or you feel like you can't leave for a period of time, that might be a sign that you need to get better at delegating and kind of getting your physical presence out of the business in the day-to-day operations.
That is so well said. This actually reminds me of a call I was on yesterday with someone who's, growing well. They're a FlashQuotes user growing well, faster than they expected, but they're having some concerns. And I should state that this does not all happen overnight. This was very much like a years-long evolution at Goodhart. And so how do you get to where a warehouse runs without you? First, you start by getting an event to run without you, one event to run without you, but you actually don't even start there. What I did is I can't have a whole event run without me. I can't have the setup run without me, the breakdown run without me, but you know what I can do? I can make sure the service runs without me. So I'm going to go, like early on, it was like, I'm going to set up, I'm going to have a barista do the service, I'm going to break down, and then, I'm going to do all the cleaning restock. So first you have the service run without you. Then you have the service and the breakdown run without you. Because once service is complete, now, there's no more time constraints, no more time stress or pressure. They just have to bring the equipment back in a big bundle if need be, right? And then you can kind of organize it and clean and restock at the headquarters. So have a service run without you, have a service and breakdown run without you, and then have a setup, service, and breakdown run without you, just one. And then, like Zach said, go on a vacation for a few days. I remember it was years ago, probably a couple years before to the date that FlashQuotes was started, a couple years before, at another Halloween party. I believe we would go out to Nashville to visit Daniel most years and do these big friend Halloween party together. And one of those, a couple years prior to the launch of FlashQuotes, it was like, I'm not missing the annual Halloween party with my boys, but I have all these events. I'm going to just prep everything and make sure I give them, give all my team all the details they need, and I'm going to have them run like this full weekend of, I think it was like 5 events that weekend, and I was absolutely terrified. But that's kind of like the nitty gritty of how you slowly build up to having a city run without you. Backtrack, it starts with running a service breakdown, full service, multiple services, and you kind of just scale up from there.
I mean, there's also a component of the optionality between just growing your current city. I could just get more carts, have more capacity, being able to service more events here, handle more of that demand versus spreading out. We've talked about this a little bit, but might be worth just touching on with this question around utilization. Like how, from a utilization standpoint, you eventually got to a point where you had so many carts that you felt, hey, these aren't being utilized well enough, or I'm kind of topped out to where I need to look for the next location. Well, what's kind of the intuition or the heuristic there that you've used?
That's a really good question. It feels like most service or kind of hospitality businesses are going to take 2 to 5 years to mature and kind of like, at that you may have quite fast growth for the first 2 to 5 years. By year 2 to 3, things are going to be really cruising. It may take you 5 to 7 years possibly to really squeeze almost all of the juice that you feel like you can at a reasonable pace. And then at that point, yeah, I felt like I had done that. I mean, I've been in Denver since 2017. Now, of course, there was still room. I mean, because other people are coming in and starting carts and adding carts to their fleet. So there was still room. But now these days, it's like, it's the trade-off of like, if I spend K to add a cart to Denver, what is that 12K investment going to earn me here in Denver versus Chicago, LA, San Francisco, Dallas? And so there is a little bit of that where actually we haven't really been adding carts to Denver. I think we're going to this year because we do have some really crazy spiky months of like May and December where we could sell a lot of carts on a single day. But yeah, at that point, once you've been in your market for 3 to 5 years and you feel like, okay, this is a really mature business and we kind of have a good sense of like how quickly you might be just growing 10 to 15% year over year or something like that. At that point, it might be worth considering like, yeah, like what is the investment of another coffee cart? Like, is it going to have a higher return on investment here or in another city?
There's kind of a broader business lesson in there. I think what you guys are saying is there's a temptation in every business to go chase the new shiny thing, and oh, it's hard here, so maybe I'll go launch in California, and then all my problems will be solved, right? But that you need to avoid that and be disciplined and really honestly ask yourself, like, are we doing everything we can here? Because all of the problems with your business in the city that you're in are going to follow you and compound in the new city. So you need to be super dialed, really, really like listen to what Justin's saying, grow your business, mature it, make sure you're being disciplined and not just like chasing the new shiny path to growth before you go take that kind of leap.
Yeah. And arguably there's this really big culture piece too, where you should also have a great culture, which sometimes is hard to accomplish. It can be hard to accomplish in the events business. I think we talked about that with Cynthia because there's periods where you don't really see certain team members, or they don't see each other for days, weeks, or longer. And so culture in the events world can be kind of tough sometimes when you have periods of high demand and then quite lower demand. We had a terrible culture for a while in San Francisco. Obviously, I was to blame for it. That city, I will say, to this day is still the absolute hardest because there's a lot of strange like pressures in the hospitality sector there where it's so expensive and anyone could just quit a job in hospitality and get a new one like the next day. So there is like more room for people to have kind of poor behavior that we don't see really in other cities, but it also, a lot of that was my fault. So if you don't have a strong culture and like good connections and good rapport with your people in your current home city, whoa, it's going to be a lot worse. It's going to be a lot worse. And really to this day, I mean, San Francisco is so tough. It's our highest volume city. It's now I would say we've really recovered. And that was a whole lesson in itself of like how we recovered from starting with a culture that maybe wasn't great. But yeah, like I can tell you, like your equipment, all of your culture, all of your equipment, like kind of damage and dings, it's all going to be way, way, way harder to manage. People are further from the source. They don't care as much, or getting them to like actually care and be connected to the business like your original location is way harder. And so, yeah, we saw like, I mean, we've had periods of just like a massive grinder graveyard in San Francisco and the most amount of damage on the carts of like by far. And it took a lot, well, one, to just maintain the equipment, and two, to kind of recover the culture. Now I feel like we're in a good place and I'm grateful, but it can be tough for sure.
We have 2 new sticker ideas now: warehouse troll, grinder graveyard. These are shirts. We're gonna get some merch going. Come on.
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome.
So the number one question we get is, what software do I need besides FlashQuotes to help me grow my business? So we decided to put together a cheat sheet. It covers everything from scheduling tools, communication tools, payroll, basically every category of software you need to run a growing event business on top of FlashQuotes. You'll save a ton of time, energy, and money trying to experiment with other tools if you just take our word for it. We've tested them all, and we have a great list for you. So it's free. You can just scan this QR code or go to flashquotes.com/software tools and download that free cheat sheet. All right, back to the pod.
Thanks for that question, Cynthia. Next one we have here is from The Secret Place Coffee. A question around how are you working through other coffee carts giving super cheap prices for their services? I mean, maybe I'll start on this one. I think it's a massive mistake to think that your customer's only concern is price. Certainly there are customers where that is the case. But if you're going to fight on price, it's generally going to be a losing battle where you're just on a downward spiral, lower and lower and lower, people undercutting each other. And so a good approach there is to take a step back, think about your target market, realize that for caterers and coffee caterers, especially customers that are corporate customers, larger clients, they're harder accounts to get, but price is usually not going to be their number one concern. And you can really stand out on other vectors. How good does your setup look? How communicative are you? Because people want to know what's going on. Are you reaching out when they're requesting a quote? Are you talking to them actively throughout the journey up to their booking? Are you calling them the day of the event to set them at ease and let them know that you are going to empower them to provide an amazing service? Are you following up afterwards to make sure everything went smoothly and to set yourself up for the next booking? And those things make such a big difference. And providing a holistic, amazing experience is really going to be standout for some of these super important clients. So I think you need to be wary of fighting on price because it's just going to be kind of a race to the bottom. I don't know, Justin, what you've found there, but I think that has stood out, and people even thinking about how they brand, what their website looks like. I think we have, actually, I know we have many FlashQuotes customers who, take pricing as a luxury to be their mindset. And they think of themselves, they're almost proud to be pricing higher than the competition, and they're winning. Why is that happening? And how should the Secret Place think about this?
Yeah, this is such a good question. Oftentimes, the really low price providers across industry, photo booth, ice cream catering, mobile coffee, floral, whatever it is, they're inherently self-limiting because they probably have not actually sat down and run the numbers. They in their head think their own labor is free, which it's not. And so then they price to where well, I used to make this much, I'm happy. If I make $400 that day, that's a great amount for me and I'm happy with that. But that does not take into, they have not done the math on their cost of goods, their transport, their drive time, their drive mileage, vehicle wear and tear. And then if they were to pay someone else to do this role. And so often these very discounted operators, regardless of industry, are kind of real mom and pop, or just a solo operator, husband and wife duo who inherently will limit themselves and won't have the capital to add more carts. They can't afford to hire good people. There's no way they're going to be hiring and retaining good people because they can't afford to. And so a lot of times they're self-limiting. In some markets you could have dozens of these and you could maybe feel, all of those paper cuts slowly, but they are all kind of smaller paper cuts. And usually a lot of the time they're just going to be around for a year or two. And then their website might be up for 5 years, but they were really only in business for 2. And you can't even get an email response from them. And, they've long since faded away and kind of stopped their thing. So that is what I've kind of seen with some of the really discounted low cost operators.
Yeah. I'd say if you're worrying about other coffee caterers in your city giving super cheap quotes, just don't worry about it. Just focus on being the best and being the premium option, and the rest will take care of itself. because I think you're incorrectly assuming that people want to buy the cheapest service, and most people don't want to buy the cheapest service, right? You can go buy a Birkin bag on Temu right now for $30, right? That's like a $10,000 plus bag. Do you think Birkin's like worried about the super cheap Birkin bag on Temu? No, because they're the luxury, they're the quality, they're their brand stands for itself. Rolex is not worried about you buying a $100 fake Rolex on eBay. They want you to want Rolex. They position themselves as the best. They're premium, they're luxury, and people want to buy the best. So probably the people who are shopping around looking for the absolute rock bottom quote are not the people that you want to be serving anyway, and they're not good long-term customers, and you're going to have a horrible time working with them. So just be the best, price yourself for what you're worth, focus on being worth, top dollar, and then, like Justin said, all the knockoffs are going to flame out, and you won't have to worry about it.
And there's a strange phenomenon that I see where our absolute lowest quotes, like the 1 hour, we don't do it during busy season, but during slow season, we'll do a 1 hour service. Our absolute rock bottom, smallest quotes, shortest service, lowest guest counts actually get the most price pushback. What is going on? And I think it's because like some of those quotes, maybe they're 500-600, like rock bottom, and like they're close. There's almost zero travel, whatever it may be. 25 guests, 1 hour service. These are like these are private events. They're like the top end of the bottom of the market, and there's the most price pushback on our cheapest quotes, which is such a strange thing. You get into that $800,000-$900,000 quote range, and that all disappears almost because it's now corporate folks or folks with actual budget. So yeah, strange phenomenon that can happen there with pricing with coffee catering.
Yeah. That's great. So pay attention to your margins, pay attention to what you're pricing at to set yourself up. You can't expand to another city if you're pricing and not even considering the cost of your own time, right? You're setting yourself up. I mean, it's good to reference what's going on in the market a bit and, not be crazy, but it almost feels like a better rule of thumb, just be really judicious and focused on your cost. Like if I was paying somebody $20 an hour, this is the cost of the time. This is the cost of the materials, perishable or otherwise. This is the cost of the travel. And then just double that. And like just, get that 50% margin for the event as just a general rule of thumb and say, okay, what is that number? Because if that number is $900 and you're pricing it for $5, you're going to be that website that's dormant for 5 years, live for 1, and you don't have a business. I mean, you do want to set this up to be the successful, thriving business that can sustain you and your family and others. So, I mean, I think that's so important. Another thing I remember from our pricing episode is pricing out of your own wallet. And it just always jumps out at me, right? Which is the idea of you price something based off of what you could afford. And it may even be like not just you now, but you as a young child, right? I went to Burger King only when there was 99-cent Whoppers and we were sharing fries and drinks and my parents didn't have money. I was one of 6 kids. I have this whole history of what it's like to live as a young kid in California when we didn't have a lot of cash. It's easy for me to tap right back into that kid and be like, I can't ask for this. Like nobody wants to pay this. And that's pricing out of your own wallet, and even worse if it's your historic wallet from when you were a child. And I love that idea because it's just a good way to get out of your own head, get out of your own way. How much in life do we not get just because we don't ask for it? Like, don't let your pricing be that. Price based off of what you believe you're worth, what you believe the service is that you're going to provide. And usually you will be surprised at what people are willing to pay.
Yeah. There's a quote, I'm looking it up right now, but it's I had it as my screensaver on my phone for a while. It's, you get in life what you have the courage to ask for. And I always try to remind myself of that, right? Be bold and ask for the, for the top tier, ask your client to pay a premium experience and let them surprise you with their answer.
Yeah. And the corollary is get social proof, right? Because it's hard when you're starting out and you are trying to ask premium prices when you have no track record yet. But it starts to become very easy as you get reviews, testimonials, portfolio, great photos of past events. At that point, like if you have all that, it's an absolute no-brainer. You're tried and true, you're tested, you have social proof, ramp up the prices.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good caveat, Justin. If you're just starting and you have nothing, you haven't launched, you haven't done your first event yet, then totally different ball game, right? You need to just price the cheapest you can possibly manage to do it. You're not really doing it for the revenue. You're doing it for the reps for the first like 10. So just get the practice, get the Google reviews, and then worry about, kind of dialing in your pricing to what's like a sustainable rate.
Yeah, that's what Cynthia ramped up the price of every single one of her events in the early days, right? It's like she booked one at this, the next one was more, the next one was more, up until like she kind of found the market. And
That's a great point too, Justin, about just to plug FlashQuotes for a second, because we give you quote analytics on your booking rate, right? And we know from experience, like average booking rate for most of these event businesses is like 15%. Excellent would be like 20 plus percent. If you're in that range or you're above, you're probably underpricing, and you probably need to keep increasing your prices gradually and watch your booking rate and just keep pushing up until you see it to start to drop, or until it gets below like a 15% rate. That would be a good market feedback for you on what pricing your market can actually sustain.
Speaking of FlashQuotes, this podcast is sponsored in part or in whole by FlashQuotes. Have you ever found yourself in the middle of the night? What?
I said it's sponsored in spirit and body and in all ways possible. Yeah.
In all ways. If you've ever found yourself in the middle of the night getting a quote and you're hanging out with your family, you don't have service, you're out camping and you're freaking out, well, don't. Get FlashQuotes. We have instant quoting. Not only, maybe you're not booking because of pricing, maybe it's because you're quoting too slow. Get FlashQuotes. Note, this is on FlashQuotes Pro, but we're awesome all around. Hit us up, flashquotes.com, book a demo, talk to Justin, talk to me, Zach. Let's rock and roll. All right, question number 3. We're doing great, guys. We're moving. It has a nice pace to it. We're not going to get through all of them, but it's got a good flow. Let's go to Cali Cold Brew. I love the alliteration. Great name. What's better, DIY, do it yourself on your cart, or buy one from an experienced retailer or shop? Justin, your answer may be different than what you did. It's kind of like do as I say, not as I do. I don't know. What's your vibe here?
yeah, that's a good question. I don't know that I've ever met a single person who got it right on their first cart build. They get it wrong. You get it wrong. It's too big, too heavy, doesn't fit through doors. If you have, like, if you want to do it yourself, consider at least looking up the dimensions of experienced coffee cart builders and copy those dimensions at the very minimum if you're building your own. If you don't do that, you're definitely going to get it wrong. There's reasons why they build their carts to those dimensions. So yeah, I mean, you may be able to save a few bucks, but then in a year or two, you're going to have to throw that entire cart away because you built it wrong the first time. And also, so it's kind of, do you have more time to spend or more money to spend? And bit of a personal question. I think most people these days seem to be buying instead of building, and they definitely seem to have a little more professional. Like, that cart is likely going to have more professional polish. If you're just slapping together a few sheets of plywood in your dad's garage, like, I don't know, maybe your client won't know, but we all see how that cuts.
What does a basic cart setup from Simple Carts cost these days?
I don't know. 3K, kind of depends. There's different options, like whether you want the storage, the storage wings on the end and the cutouts and, what plumbing and stuff, as well as like what colors. But
I'll take a different or a more decisive approach, Justin. I think your answer is probably right, but I'll say don't build it, just buy it. There's a few reasons why. Like Justin said, number one, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you're doing. You haven't built a cart before. There's a lot of little nuances that you'll probably get wrong that are just going to set you back and end up wasting time. And that's time that you could have spent working on your website, working on your SEO, cold calling people, getting your leads, like growing the business. Time spent nailing together a cart and iterating it on the workshop is probably not the best use of time when you're starting. Number two, if you start with a simple cart, it's not a huge outlay, but it's expensive. it makes you take the business more seriously, I think, when you make an investment like that. Like, okay, I'm going to spend $3,000 and I'm going to go pay it off by working events. It won't take you that many events. You could probably book 2, 3, 4 events and your card is paid for, but it gives you a sense of urgency and a sense of seriousness and professionalism. There's this book, The War of Art, I think, by Stephen Pressfield, that talks about this, like going pro. You need to go pro in whatever you're doing. Even if you're not quitting your job like right away, you need to like psychologically go pro. You can't treat it like a hobby. You can't treat it like an amateur. You're never going to succeed. You really need to like be all in and be committed. And spending some upfront capital to invest in your business is one of the best psychological tricks to go pro and to make yourself like take it seriously, make yourself hustle and get out there and try and book those first 4 events so you can pay for the cart.
Yeah, I love that.
Well said. Great shout out to Stephen Pressfield. That's such a great book.
It's a great book.
It is. I've reread that one. Usually I'm not a rereader, but that is a great reread. It's a good refresher. There's also something where people say, it's like there's this idea that the thing that you should be doing is usually the thing you're not doing. The thing you're putting off is that which you should be doing first and foremost. And I think in the case of cart building, that is a great thing to distract you from what you really should be doing, which is getting your website built, ordering your equipment, and going out and doing reps. Getting those events, even if they're free events, to get Google reviews and get reps early. Calling people, calling caterers in your area, calling business owners or marketing directors or folks at hotels, just hustling. And you really need to be wary of tinkering on a cart, because I think that can be a real trap to keep you from doing the really uncomfortable stuff of getting out there and doing the work.
You know how many coffee carts, I'm just assuming, but I think it's true. You know how many coffee carts are sitting in dusty garages like around the US right now because like they built their cart and just never, it was kind of more of just, to your point, Daniel, like a construction project. That it's got to be an astounding number of like failed coffee catering or event businesses where it was just, they got off on the wrong foot, they got distracted, they built the cart because they wanted to really woodwork, and it just sat there dormant and never launched.
And no one wants to buy your homemade cart, right?
Yeah.
If you buy a good cart, like, and your business doesn't work or you change your mind, then just look up the best coffee caterer on FlashQuotes in your city and they'll buy it off you, right? Like actually has an asset that has value. It's not just, something that's going to sit in your junk heap if everything goes wrong.
Ooh, I like that. Are you a woodworker or are you a coffee catering entrepreneur?
There was a question from Charlotte Mobile Coffee about calculating product and how do we calculate milk and, whole milk, oat milk, almond milk, or whatever product we're using for events. If you didn't know, we have like a free coffee catering calculator on the FlashQuotes website, just flashquotes.com. Well, we'll leave the link in the show notes, flashquotes.com/tools/coffee catering calculator.
Just click tools, go to flashquotes.com.
Perfect. Yep. So that you can configure it. And so how I largely think about calculating it, and really what our calculator is based off, is like when you go out to an event, how many people do you serve before you go through 1 carton of oat milk or 1 gallon of whole milk? So the formula is basically like, well, for every 100 people, we go through 3 gallons of whole milk, one carton of oat milk, or that sort of thing. And so the formula is based on that. And then you just calibrate it a little bit. It's already well calibrated, but you can just calibrate it and it'll spit out all the products you need for your event. One other tool that I want people's feedback on. It's a tool that I've been thinking about that Zach has kind of, he's could definitely spin up, and it's basically a custom cart branding tool where imagine if, you book an event, and usually if you have custom branding on that event, your client wants to see what that custom branding is going to look like. They want to see a mock-up of the cart, a latte art, whatever it is. What if we built a tool where you could just upload a photo of your cart or whatever it is, your cup, you could upload a logo, and instantly we would like generate the proofs for you, the mock-up photos for you to then share with your client. Would a tool like that interest you all? If you're listening to this episode, please let us know. We may make our decision based on, the comments and feedback. So I know that'd be a tool that really excites me. We do a lot of custom branding, and it's a whole thing to like our designer does the proofs and we, pay handsomely for them. But imagine if you could just upload 2 files, instantly have your proofs and send them off to clients. Let us know.
Yeah, drop a comment. If enough people comment and say, I want this tool, then I will build it. I don't like, sometimes we get excited about AI ideas and I think, oh, does anyone actually want this? But if the market wants it, we will deliver it.
If they come, we will build it. That's the correct order.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, another cool riff on that we've thought about too is maybe the customers can do that and then they can see, presentation of what it could look like as a selling opportunity too, even before they've ordered it, which could be.
Yeah. Yeah. For anyone who's not following the AI world super closely, there's this new image generation model from Google called Nano Banana. Very silly name, very amazing image generation API that can do all kinds of crazy stuff. So we've been brainstorming internally on what kind of AI features could we unlock in FlashQuotes that would be really useful to people. So whether that's spitting up additional images of different types of events that changing out the backdrop on your photos, or creating different settings for your imagery, for your gallery, or customizing the gallery in some way to each quote type so that people can see something really tailored to their brand or their company name or things like that. There's lots of interesting possibilities now in that space. So hit us up if you have ideas or if any of that sounds like something you would want.
Nice. All right. Well, I think we should wrap there. We've hit 4 questions. We've got a couple more that we will kick off and save for next time. Thank you so much for your questions, everyone. Hopefully you've enjoyed this episode, and we will loop in another Q&A here in the near future. Until next time, stay flashy.
See y'all.